Somewhere along the way, we all started collecting relationship advice from the wrong places. We read quotes on social media that sound nice for 5 seconds and mean nothing the next morning. We watch people online tell us what a healthy relationship should look like, using words like boundaries and communication and love language. And we nod along, and then we go back to our own lives, and none of it actually helps. Because real relationships are not built from quotes. They are not built from theories. They are built from moments, mistakes, silence, forgiveness, and time. And if you really want to understand what a relationship actually needs to survive, you don't need a book. You need to look at the people who have been quietly living it out in front of you your whole life. I used to think I understood relationships because I had read about them. I had opinions about what love should look like, what respect should sound like, what a partner should or shouldn't do. I had all of this information, but none of it was tested. None of it had been through a hard year, a silent car ride, a moment where two people wanted to walk away and chose to stay instead. Then I started paying attention to the people around me who had actually lived through real relationships, the ones that lasted, the ones that struggled and survived anyway. And I realized something. The advice you actually need is rarely loud. It is rarely dramatic. It is usually small, quiet, and easy to miss if you are not paying attention. The first thing I learned is that love is not a feeling you maintain. It is a decision you repeat. There is this idea that if a relationship is right, it should always feel easy, that the right person will never frustrate you, never disappoint you, never make you question anything. But that is not how real relationships work. Real relationships have mornings where you wake up annoyed at the person next to you for no real reason. They have days where you feel distant even though nothing happened. They have moments where the spark feels quiet instead of loud. And in those moments, the couples who last are not the ones who never feel that way. They are the ones who choose to stay anyway, who choose to show up again the next day, who understand that love is less about a constant feeling and more about a consistent choice. The second thing I learned is that most fights are not really about what they seem to be about. Two people arguing about dishes in the sink are rarely actually arguing about dishes. They are arguing about feeling unappreciated. Two people arguing about being late are rarely arguing about time. They are arguing about feeling like a priority. Once you understand this, the way you handle conflict changes completely. Instead of defending the surface issue, you start asking what is actually being felt underneath it. Is this about feeling unheard? Is this about feeling alone in this? Is this about feeling like your effort isn't being noticed? When you start listening for the real question underneath the arguments themselves start to lose their power to break things. The third thing, and maybe the most important one, is that real relationships are not maintained by big gestures. They are maintained by small, consistent ones. It is not the expensive gift once a year that keeps two people close. It is the small habit of asking how someone's day went and actually listening to the answer. It is remembering the tiny details someone mentioned once and bringing it up again weeks later, just to show you were paying attention. It is choosing to put the phone down when someone is talking to you, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it. These small moments don't feel important individually, but they add up into something that feels a lot like being loved consistently, not just occasionally. I also learned that respect is more important than romance, and this one took me longer to understand. Romance is easy to fake. Anyone can say the right words, plan the right date, post the right photo. But respect shows up in how someone treats you when there is no audience. It shows up in whether they speak kindly about you when you're not in the room. It shows up in whether they take your opinion seriously even when it's inconvenient for them. It shows up in whether they apologize when they're wrong without turning it into an argument about who is more wrong. A relationship without romance can still survive. A relationship without respect eventually collapses, no matter how romantic it once was. Another piece of advice that changed how I see relationships is this: you cannot pour from an empty version of yourself. So many people try to fix a struggling relationship by giving more, trying harder, being more patient, more understanding, more accommodating, while completely neglecting themselves in the process. But a relationship is not meant to be one person constantly emptying themselves out to keep the other person full. The healthiest relationships I've seen are the ones where both people take care of themselves individually first, so that what they bring into the relationship is not desperation or exhaustion, but genuine presence. You have to be a whole person before you can build something whole with someone else. I also came to understand that timing and effort matter more than intensity. We tend to romanticize intense love, the kind that feels overwhelming, the kind that consumes you. But intensity fades. What lasts is effort that shows up consistently, even in ordinary moments. A relationship where someone checks in on a normal Tuesday. Where someone remembers to ask if you're okay after a hard day. Where someone shows up not because it's a special occasion, but simply because they care. That is a stronger foundation than any grand romantic gesture could ever be. Intensity is exciting. Consistency is what actually holds two people together over years. There is also something important about how we handle each other's flaws. No one enters a relationship perfect, and no one stays perfect throughout it. The people who build lasting relationships are not the ones who found someone without flaws. They are the ones who decided which flaws they could grow around and which ones they couldn't, and then committed honestly to that decision instead of pretending the flaws didn't exist. Pretending leads to resentment. Honest acceptance, paired with honest boundaries, leads to something real. You don't need a perfect partner. You need someone whose flaws you can live with and who is willing to work on the ones that hurt you. One more thing I have to mention is the importance of silence, the good kind. Not the silence of avoidance, but the comfortable silence of simply being present with someone without needing to fill every moment with words. The strongest relationships I've witnessed are not the ones filled with constant talking and excitement. They are the ones where two people can sit in the same room, doing nothing, saying nothing, and still feel completely connected. That kind of comfort cannot be faked or rushed. It is built slowly, through years of trust, through choosing each other again and again in small, unremarkable moments that no one else ever sees. If there is one piece of advice underneath everything I've said, it's this: stop looking for relationships to feel like the version you see online, and start paying attention to the quiet, consistent, and glamorous version that actually lasts. The advice you need right now is not to find someone perfect. It's not to wait for a feeling that never fades. It's to understand that real love shows up in small choices, repeated daily by two people who decided that showing up for each other, even on the hard days, even on the boring days, even on the days that don't feel romantic at all, is worth it. So if you're in a relationship right now that feels ordinary, that feels quiet, that doesn't feel like the movies, that might not be a warning sign. That might actually be what real love looks like. And if you're waiting for a relationship, stop waiting for intensity and start looking for consistency. Look for someone who shows up in small ways, who respects you when no one is watching, who chooses you again on the days it would be easier not to. That is the relationship advice you actually need right now. Not a quote, not a theory, just the truth that real love is built quietly, one small choice at a time.